Hello everyone and welcome to another edition of On The Whistle. We're back again just a couple of days after the last episode because we've got another Sunderland game to talk through. Bit of an odd game to assess actually. Sunderland won, Bristol City won. A frustrating night ultimately. It was obviously a big opportunity for Sunderland to get back-to-back wins against a team that had lost 3-0 away at Portsmouth a few days before, so you thought maybe confidence would be a bit low. Also a lot of travelling for Bristol City. So I felt that it was a game in which, although Bristol City have a lot of individual talent and they're a very good, especially away from home, they're a very quick side, very athletic side, often quite an awkward counter-attacking opponent. I think we've seen that in the last few seasons when Sunderland have played them at home, especially under Nigel Pearson. It did feel like a bit of an opportunity for Sunderland. And what was interesting about the game was actually the first 20-25 minutes played out exactly as you kind of hoped it would, whereas Sunderland I thought were really fluid. Again, like they did on Saturday, I thought they were playing some lovely football, getting the ball into the wide areas really nicely. Meander and Watson causing a lot of problems. The only kind of frustration in that period of the game was that Sunderland weren't really turning it into clear-cut chances. I didn't think Max O'Leary had a great deal to do in the Bristol City goal early on. Speaking to Régis Lebris afterwards in his post-match press conference, he was sort of saying that his big frustration was he didn't think Sunderland got enough bodies in the box when they've created those openings, when they created those kind of half chances. And his point was it's not just about the player who can potentially get on the end of the cross. If you're able to flood the box and get more bodies in the box, it's about the second ball as well. It's about the pressure you can apply on the opposition. It's about the loose balls. So he was very clear after the game that the big thing he thinks Sunderland need to continue to work on, sorry about that, is playing against a low block, basically. I think it's something that we've seen Sunderland struggle with at the Stadium of Light for quite a long time. It's clearly something where there's still a lot of work to be done. And I think that's at the root of sort of, last night's frustration. I thought that Sunderland were really unfortunate in that I thought Tommy Watson's injury really derailed their momentum for two reasons, really. One, it just slowed the game down. While Watson was being treated and Sunderland were down to 10 men, they obviously had to put their foot on the ball. They had to slow it down. They couldn't take any chances so that Bristol City couldn't capitalise. And it took them a little while to sort of lift the tempo again. It also just really damaged Sunderland's kind of structure, if you like, because Watson's been so effective over the last few games. Meander having to move out onto the left. The way that Sunderland play, I don't think it's ideal to have a left-footed left winger because they're always wanting to cut inside. I do think that over the course of the 90 minutes, I made Elijah Meander my Sunderland sort of player of the match. Doesn't always come off. Sometimes he loses the ball, but I think you expect that with the way he plays. And actually, I thought his energy was excellent throughout the game. I thought he made a really good fist of the left wing role, took on his player a lot, got past him a lot. I thought most of Sunderland's good play came through his sort of directness and his willingness to try and make something happen. But I do think that unfortunate kind of enforced substitution really kind of damaged Sunderland. And I think the second half was really strange. It's not one that I saw coming. I was incredibly disappointed with Sunderland's performance. They looked lethargic. They seemed to completely run out of ideas. I think you've got to give a lot of credit to Bristol City and Liam Manning. He was very bold. He made a double substitution at half-time, which is not something you see many managers do at 0-0. And he also made a slight tactical tweak. Went to 3 at the back. I asked him about this after the game in his post-match press conference, and what he basically explained is, yes, it's a risk because you're pushing another player high up the pitch, but what it enables you to do is it enables you to get an extra player on to press Sunderland's defence. And so basically, make it harder for Sunderland to move the ball quickly into the wingers, which is something that we know they can be so destructive. I'm really interested moving forward how Sunderland kind of what the takeaway from this. Like I said, I thought there were a lot of tired legs out there, and I thought that was a big part of why Bristol City were able to wrestle back control. But I do wonder if there's a little tactical thing for Lebris here, because that's not the first time we've seen a team playing 3 at the back cause Sunderland a lot of problems with their build-up and nick the ball back a lot and sort of push Sunderland back towards their own goal. We definitely saw it away at Watford. I think we saw it away at Preston. That was obviously a very changed team, and that was part of that. So it'll be interesting to see whether it is something where there was just too many tired legs out there from a Sunderland perspective, or whether it's maybe something a little bit tactical that Sunderland need to look at. Is that something that they're kind of consistently struggling with? So all in all, I think it was a bit of a disappointing point, but obviously in the circumstances when you're 1-0 down, 92 minutes into the game, and it's a long time since you've created a chance, I think you're very happy to go away with the point. And I think you have to give credit to Patrick Roberts. We spoke after the Stoke game about how he'd been much better, much closer to the kind of form he showed at the start of the season, and he ended his long wait for a goal with a really an open play goal, with a really, really well taken finish. And then of course Dan Ballard nearly nicked it, a good save from O'Leary. So I suppose it's one of those, we always say these kind of things in the Championship, whereby if you go and win it at Swansea on Saturday, it's a good point, because then it's 7 points and 9 in a really, really positive week. It obviously preserves the unbeaten home run, which is nice as well. But it feels a little bit different to, for example, the Leeds game, where it really, really felt like a point gained. Obviously, it was a point gained in the circumstances, but this felt a lot more like a bit of a missed opportunity. As I say, I think you do have to give a bit of credit to Bristol City. I thought they were quite passive in the first half, but the manager made some bold changes to get them back into the game, so credit to him for that. So we're going to go into your questions now. I'm just going to have a drink of coffee. Sorry, I know it's not very pleasant listening to me drink coffee, but late finish, early start, I need my coffee. No coffee, no on the whistle, those are the rules, I'm afraid. Loads of you asked a question on a similar theme, so I'm just going to bunch them all in together, but I'll read them out here. Ross says, time for Adil to get a chance now. Clearly got quality and Rig is desperate for a break. Henny says, feels like we need to freshen things up for the weekend. Aouchiche earned a start. Scar34 says, given the positive cameo from Aouchiche tonight, what future do you see for him, given that he's largely been frozen out until recently? Yeah, I think Aouchiche deserves a lot of credit for his little kind of cameo substitution last night. I have to be honest, I was sort of tearing my hair out a bit when I saw him. Not that I've got much left, but what I did have left, I was tearing out, because sort of seeing him going out and on the line up on the left wing, you kind of think, come on, give the guy a chance. You know, he gets so few opportunities to impact the game, and then he comes on and he's shunted out into what is in no way kind of a natural position for him. He's never going to be a winger who can sort of drive at the full-back and take them on. He doesn't really have the pace or the dribbling ability for that. You know, at one point Sunderland launched a long ball towards him, and I'm kind of thinking, come on, you know, help the guy out. But I think credit to Lebris, I think by the end of the game you could see a little bit more what he was thinking by bringing him on. You know, he was linking up quite nicely with Sirkin, with the other midfielders. He was drifting into little pockets of space. I actually do think he gave the fullback something different to think about, because his style is so different to a traditional left winger. I think you've got to give him a lot of credit, and obviously you got the assist for Roberts, so fair play to him. It's a really strange dynamic. Do I think this changes his position in the squad and moving forward? Not particularly, no. I mean, Aouchiche is 22. He's played a lot of football in the French top tier. He's not going to be, he's not going to settle for a bit part role coming off the bench every 3 or 4 games for 20 minutes. And I don't think there's any reason why he should do that. And I don't think Sunderland will have any intention of standing in his way come January. I think they know that it's not sustainable for him to be playing this little football. You've also got to remember that, you know, Sunderland, Lebris has basically said that they're looking for some additions in the final third, 1 or 2. You had Romain Mundle back, you had Alan Brown back, you had Jan Paveda coming fitness into the equation. I think Aouchiche, by the time sort of January comes around, is pretty much going to be back where he started at the beginning of the season. And I don't think I don't see that changing. What's really weird about this dynamic approach in the January window is Sunderland play Portsmouth at home on January the 5th. You can't imagine there'll be a lot of business done before then. So that's 6 games. We're not expecting Mundle and Brown to be back and play a significant part before then. Jan Paveda might do, but they're going to be cautious with them, you would think. I think Sunderland are going to need Aouchiche over those 6 games, because I think, as Ross mentioned there at the start, I think we're beginning to see sometimes, especially in the second half games, we're beginning inevitably to see a few signs of fatigue from Chris Rigg. As we mentioned, if Tommy Watson's going to be out for a period of time with that injury, we don't know yet what the extent of that is. We asked Lebris about it afterwards. He said he didn't have a diagnosis. It would obviously be wrong to speculate. He did say that he was having issues with his ankle and his knee, which is obviously not a great sign, but we should find out more in the week when we speak to Lebris ahead of the trip to Swansea. But if Watson is out for a while, the options are not really that great for Lebris, and I think he's going to have to use Aouchiche. I think the main thing is you've got to praise Aouchiche that, you know, obviously he's a professional footballer. You expect him to apply himself no matter the situation. He's well remunerated for it. But he's done the hard yards really since Sunderland, or, you know, he almost went on deadline day, but he's done the hard yards since then. He's trained well. He's played in all the under-21s games when he's asked to, often away from home. And he's kind of forced his way back in. So I've got a lot of respect for the way he's done that. I think Sunderland will need him. And I think it's encouraging that last night he showed he's sort of got the hunger to make an impact, because I think he is going to be needed. I think he will probably have to start at least a couple of games between now and potentially leaving the club in January if that's what happens. So yeah, I doubt it changes too much, but you never know. Football's an odd sport. Like, we've seen players come back from the cold before, and Aouchiche certainly showed last night that he's got a lot to offer. So let's see what happens over the coming games. Henny, as part of his questions, also said maybe give Connolly a go from the start again as a number 10, as at Millwall. I definitely think that's an option moving forward, whether it's Saturday, whether it's the week after, whether it's over the Christmas fixtures. I think we'll have to see Connolly start with either Isidor or Meander up front, because, as I said, I think he's been amazing this season, especially in the first half of games. He's still seeing Chris Rigby, one of the best players on the pitch and one of the most creative players on the pitch week in, week out. But I think we are seeing a few signs of tiredness maybe. And I don't think it's realistic to expect him to start. I mentioned that run of 6 games between now and January 5th. I'm not sure how realistic it is for him to start in each and every one of them. So I do think that it's probably tough for Connolly at the moment, but I think that probably is going to be his way back into the team at some point. So Andrew says, is it time for Isidor to come out and have a rest? Yeah, it's an interesting question. Obviously, it's been a frustrating couple of games for Isidor. I felt quite strongly after the Stoke game that you had to persist with Isidor because, he's talked so much of last season about Sunderland strikers not scoring goals, but actually the heart of it, the real issue was they weren't even getting chances. They weren't in the right positions to even get shots away, and that was what was so concerning. After the Stoke game, I'm kind of looking at going, I've got no worries with Isidor. We've seen so far this season that he's a good finisher. If he keeps getting the number of chances that he had against Stoke, he's going to start scoring goals. I still largely think that. I do think last night he really struggled. I think that's fairly obvious. I think that he obviously didn't get many chances. I thought Bristol City's 2 centre-halves managed him really, really well and kind of won that contest. I think it's interesting because, Isidor's 24, which in our minds, when we view him against the rest of the Sunderland squad, almost makes him a veteran. But of course, you've got to remember that he's still quite a young player, adjusting to a new division. He's playing more football at the moment than he has for quite a while because he was in and out of the team at Zenit before. So I think there's probably inevitably some signs of fatigue from him as well. Playing Saturday, Tuesday, he obviously gets through a huge amount of running. So I think it's maybe one to watch over the coming weeks. But for now, to be honest, if I was in charge, thankfully for you lot, I'm not in charge of Sunderland, but if it was me, I think I'd probably be giving Isidor another go on Saturday. I think he brings so much to the team with his all-round play and his running. And I'd be tempted to stick with him, but I definitely think it's one to watch because last night was the first time where I felt he looked a little bit fatigued. But I think what we've seen from him so far, without being prolific necessarily, I think he's shown enough sort of poacher's instinct to be worth persisting with, I think. So Ross says, was the second half our worst of the season? Yeah, I think it was probably up there, to be honest. Let me just have a quick look through the fixtures and see. I suppose there was the second half at Plymouth, which was really frustrating because someone really had that game by the scruff of the neck. And although they kind of rallied towards the end, I think that was a big missed opportunity. The first half of Watford, I didn't think was great either. And again, kind of what I was mentioning earlier, I think that there were probably some similarities between Watford in that game and Bristol City in the second half last night, and the way Sunderland struggled to almost build up as we know they can. Seem to get pushed back, really find it hard to find their wingers and sort of break out from the press. So maybe there's something a little bit to think about there. But I do think that last night, there did seem to be a real kind of lethargy about Sunderland's play at the second half. So it's probably one for LeBreeze to reflect on, not just the tactical element, but is he got a few players there who maybe do need a bit of a break? We've talked about Isidor, we've talked about Rig. I think that would be something for him to really kind of reflect on in the next couple of days, and obviously see how the players recover. Because I definitely think that, it was a tough watch at times, that second half last night, and it's not very often we've said that this season, and especially not away from home. So Carl says, did we miss Luke O'Nine's ability to bring the ball out from defence amongst his other qualities? Not the only issue, but felt at times that we could have done better and moved us up the pitch quicker. I really agree with this, Carl. I think it's a great point. I think we're obviously going to be talking a lot probably in the weeks ahead about the selection decisions that LeBreeze makes and who's sort of the best 2 centre-halves to play are. I think that Chris Metham and Dan Ballard have outstanding defensive qualities, Premier League defensive qualities, I think. Don't think there's any doubt about that whatsoever. But I do think that aside from his leadership and his mentality, I do think last night shows, especially on home turf, what Luke O'Nien offers that is a little bit different. His aggression when he drives out with the ball, his willingness to take risks in possession, the way he wraps the ball through the lines. I think he offers a lot on the ball, especially when Lebris is talking about that riddle of trying to break down deep line defences. I think that's a really kind of important part of the jigsaw is O'Nien. And it's not me saying I definitely think O'Nien sort of should play ahead of Mepham or Ballard. But I do think you saw last night why he has something a bit different to offer. I do think Mepham can do it in part. I think you see him take some risks on the ball. You see him play over the top quite well to Isidor. And saw him play over the top to Meenda last night a couple of times as well, which almost sort of brought a reward. So I do think Mepham can do a lot of that. But I do think particularly with his kind of ability to drive out in possession, I think O'Nien does offer something a bit different. And so I think moving forward in games like this, I do still think O'Nien has a lot to offer at centre-half. Yeah, I think that's about it. Thanks so much for sending all your questions in. Obviously, we'll be there at Swansea on Saturday, so On The Whistle will probably be up on Sunday because I'll have quite a long journey home. But thanks again for sending all your questions and comments in. Thanks so much for watching. We'll be speaking to Lebris probably tomorrow, possibly Friday, ahead of the Swansea game, where we should get an update on Tommy Watson and everything else. Just as one last aside, we mentioned O'Nien there. Lebris did say after the game that O'Nien had been ill, but he should be fine for Saturday. So yeah, keep an eye out on the Sunderland Deco. We'll have all your kind of updates linking to that game and obviously full coverage from the game itself on Saturday. And I'll see you probably Sunday for another edition of On The Whistle. Thanks for watching, everyone.